208 lakh
कुछ ही पलों पहले वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण ने राज्यसभा में आम बजट 2022-23 की कॉपी जो है वो टेबल की है। वो सीधे तस्वीरें अभी हमने थोड़ी देर पहले देखी। आज आम बजट 2022-23 वित्त मंत्री ने पेश किया। क्या बड़ी बातें इस बजट को लेकर रही हैं, उस पर हम लगातार अपने मेहमानों के साथ भी चर्चा कर रहे हैं। और आइए फिलहाल हम सुनते हैं कि वित्त मंत्री ने क्या बड़े ऐलान किए हैं बजट में।
India's economic growth in the current year is estimated to be 9.2%, highest among all large economies. I recognize we are in the midst of an Omicron wave with high incidence but milder symptoms. Further, the speed and coverage of our vaccination campaign has helped greatly. With an accelerated improvement of health infrastructure in the past 2 years, we are in a strong position to withstand challenges. I am confident that with Sabka Prayas, we will continue our journey with strong growth. PM Gati Shakti. PM Gati Shakti is a transformative approach for economic growth and sustainable development. The approach is driven by 7 engines, namely roads, railways, airports, ports, mass transport, waterways, and logistics infrastructure. All 7 engines will pull forward the economy in unison. These engines are supported by the complementary roles of energy transmission, IT communication, bulk water and sewerage, and social infrastructure. Finally, the approach is powered by clean energy and Sabka Prayas. The efforts of the central government, the state governments, and the private sector together, leading to a huge job and entrepreneurial opportunities for all, especially the youth. PM Gati Shakti Master Plan, National Master Plan. The scope of PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan will encompass the 7 engines for economic transformation, seamless multimodal connectivity, and logistics efficiency. It will also include the infrastructure development by the state governments as per Gati Shakti Master Plan. The focus will be on planning, financing, including through innovative ways, use of technology, and speedier implementation. The projects pertaining to these 7 engines in the national infrastructure pipeline will be aligned with PM Gati Shakti framework. Road transport. PM Gati Shakti Master Plan for expressways will be formulated in 22-23 to facilitate faster movement of people and goods. The national highways network will be expanded by 25,000 kilometers in 2022-23. 20,000 crores of rupees will be mobilized through innovative ways of financing to complement the public resources. The data exchange among all mode operators will be brought on unified logistics interface platform, designed for application programming interface. This will provide for efficient movement of goods through different modes, reducing logistics cost and time, assisting just-in-time inventory management, and in eliminating tedious documentation. Most importantly, this will provide real-time information to all stakeholders and improve international competitiveness. Open source mobility stack for organizing seamless travel of passengers will also be facilitated. Contracts for implementation of multimodal logistic parks at 4 locations through PPP mode will be awarded in 22-23.
Okay, so there you heard the Finance Minister's, key highlights of a Finance Minister's budget speech. Let's now, come back to the agriculture part there, Shubhmoy. Earlier, before we went to the upper house, talking about that. In terms of the focus on agri and allied sectors, what do you see is the path ahead from here onwards, not only in terms of policies and steps, but also in terms of what is achievable and how will it be achieved?
Yeah, that's an important point, Vishal, because essentially what is the government now saying, center? The center is saying, and this is in the perspective what has happened in the agriculture sector, that there are already laws. There are state level laws, there's a model central law, which is available for agricultural marketing and so on and all that. What the center is now saying is that I am going to bring farmers under the digital frame. I'm going to bring the farmers, give the opportunity to them to take advantage of the framework that is available. Now that's very good, because what it essentially does is it sort of allows a pick and choose. Now the numbers, for agriculture sector, the big change I feel is basically what happens in infrastructure.
Okay.
When a road gets built, when a railway network gets built, these are very solid economic reform makers for agriculture sector, because that helps marketing. So what happens in the logistics sector? These are the sectors where the center is putting a lot of effort.
And the budget also gives a lot of focus on the use of technology and entrepreneurship as well. When we're talking about agriculture and allied sectors, Mr. Bhattacharya was also referring to the dairy sector. Even the industry representative we had, Mr. Mukundan, was also referring to that. So it looks like it can't be just one way of looking at pushing the agri sector reforms. Absolutely. Or taking it higher from the 3.9% growth figures as of now.
Yeah, and in that context, the change in the taxation structure for cooperatives, bringing it at par with companies, now that actually means that the cost of forming a cooperative becomes less. Now that's important, because we are talking about farmer-producer organizations.
KFPOs.
There are a lot of these ideas that the farmers essentially should be pooled together to be able to take advantage of economies of scale. Now, obviously, the costs was higher. I mean, so that was something that wasn't discovered earlier, but it's now there, that the costs have been reduced. So that is a very solid help step. Secondly, when farming is an activity which requires connectivity of money to flow through, bringing post office savings bank on the digital platform, making every one of the post office savings bank. These are measures which often escape notice, but they actually play a very strong role.
And digital banking centers in 75 districts.
Countryside, exactly, because they allow for easier movement of flow of money, and that's what creates more liquidity in the economy, which wasn't available earlier. Remember, we have to read this in context of measures like e-Shram and others, which have already been announced. So they sort of build on. It's not something that these were already there and those are forgotten. Now you go on to the others. They sort of are connecting through. And that is what is necessary for the agricultural sector to take advantage. And agriculture sector has been doing well in the pandemic. In fact, that was the sector which grew at 3.8, 3.9 in both the years, actually keeping up the growth rate in the economy when the rest of the economy was sort of floundering.
Indeed.
So to take advantage of it, you need these sort of changes. And in the context of climate change, which is coming upon us, again, the government's emphasis on climate, chemical-free farming, and raising of green bonds, all of these go to help the agriculture sector.
Okay.
और इसके साथ ही एग्रीकल्चर में जो स्टार्टअप की बात है, उसे जिस तरह के समर्थन की बात बजट में कही गई है शुभमोय, और साथ ही स्टार्टअप की जब हम बात कर रहे हैं और धीरे धीरे युवाओं को आधुनिक खेती के साथ जुड़ने की बात कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि समय के साथ तमाम ऐसी चीज़ें हैं, वो चाहे क्लाइमेट चेंज को लेकर रही हो या खेती को लेकर रही हो। मैं इस पर आपसे कमेंट लूँगी। इस समय मैं सीधा एक बार फिर अखिलेश सुमन, मेरे सहयोगी संसद भवन परिसर से जुड़ रहे हैं, उनके पास हम रुख करते हैं। अखिलेश, जो बड़ी बातें आपके नज़रिए से रही हैं बजट में, उनका जिक्र आप कर रहे थे, खासकर जो पड़ोसी देशों को मदद देने से जुड़े जो ऐलान है उसके बारे में आप बता रहे थे। मैं चाहूँगी थोड़ा आप बताएं उसके बारे में, और हमने देखा कि राज्यसभा में भी जो कॉपी है वो टेबल हो गई है, और क्या प्रतिक्रियाएं हैं?
देखिए, निश्चित तौर पे ये औपचारिकता होती है कि जब लोकसभा में बजट पेश हो जाता है उसके 1 घंटे बाद राज्यसभा में बजट रखा जाता है, उसकी प्रति रखी जाती है, लेकिन उस पे कोई बहस, कोई डिस्कशन, कोई चर्चा आज नहीं होती है। तो उसी परिपाटी को आज भी अपनाया गया और राज्यसभा में बजट की प्रति रखी गई और उसके अलावा जो फिनांस बिल था वो रखा गया। तो उसके बाद राज्यसभा एडजॉर्न हो गई है कल के लिए, और जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि कल 10 बजे से फिर राज्यसभा की कार्रवाई शुरू होगी जो 3 बजे तक चलेगी। तो ये तो बजट से संबंधित, आज के कार्रवाई से संबंधित बात है, लेकिन जो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात है कि आज निर्मला सीतारमण ने तकरीबन 1.5 घंटे का जो बजट भाषण दिया और वो काफ़ी ध्यान से लोग उसको अभी एनालाइज करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, और यहाँ तक कि जो विपक्ष है, विपक्ष भी कोई ऐसी खामी निकाल नहीं पा रहा है कि वो क्या करे। और ख़ास तौर पर सबसे ज़्यादा आश्चर्य तब हुआ जब वो बोलने जा रही थी कि हम डायरेक्ट टैक्स की अब घोषणा कर रहे हैं, उसके बाद तृणमूल कांग्रेस के एक सांसद ने चुटकी दी कि हाँ अब काम की बातें सुनते हैं। लेकिन सबको बड़ी निराशा हुई, खासतौर पर विपक्ष को, कि इनकम टैक्स स्लैब में कोई परिवर्तन नहीं किया गया। तो एक जो होता है विपक्ष के लिए काफ़ी एक्साइटिंग टाइम होता है और पत्रकारों के लिए भी काफ़ी एक्साइटिंग टाइम होता है जब इनकम टैक्स के स्लैब में परिवर्तन किया जाता है। उसमें तरह तरह के विश्लेषण किए जाते हैं, किस पर क्या असर पड़ेगा, किस पर नहीं असर पड़ेगा। तो वह जो उस पर निर्मला सीतारमण ने कुछ बोला ही नहीं, तो एक बहुत बड़ा एक्साइटमेंट आज बजट से निकल गया। लेकिन जो एनालाइज कर रहे थे सांसद, सत्ता पक्ष के सांसद जिस तरीके से बता रहे थे, उनका कहना यह था कि ये बजट जो है इनोवेटिव बजट है और यह बजट अगले 20 साल 25 साल को ध्यान में रख के किया गया है, ताकि जो आने वाली चुनौतियां हैं जो भारत की, खास तौर पे क्लाइमेट चेंज के बारे में जो बैटरी स्वैप की बात की गई कि बैटरी स्वैप की व्यवस्था की जाएगी, क्योंकि हर जगह पे हम चार्जर उपलब्ध नहीं करा सकते अगर हम जो इलेक्ट्रिकल व्हीकल को लगाएंगे। तो यह काफ़ी इनोवेटिव बात है कि बैटरी स्वैप करेंगे आप, और बैटरी स्वैपिंग पूरी एक्टिविटी में प्राइवेट सेक्टर को लगाया जाएगा। तो एक एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन की एक्टिविटी बढ़ेगी, जिसमें कि प्राइवेट बैटरी मैन्युफैक्चरर से लेके उसकी डिलीवरी एजेंट और उसमें लगे हुए सारे जो मेंटेनेंस एक्टिविटी है सारे। तो एक मंत्री ने यह बताया कि यह एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन करने वाली बात है, और इस एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन और इनोवेटिव और फिर फ्यूचरिस्टिक बजट के कारण जो एक भावना बनी है, उस भावना के तहत आप देख रहे हैं कि सेंसेक्स में भी काफ़ी उछाल आया, काफ़ी पॉजिटिव रिएक्शन हुआ शेयर बाजार से। अब उसके बाद जहाँ तक कुछ सांसद ये बता रहे थे कि जो आप बजट डेफिसिट देख रहे हैं, बजट डेफिसिट तो बहुत ही नेचुरल है, अगर कल्याणकारी योजनाओं को जारी रखना है तो हमको बजट डेफिसिट देखना पड़ेगा। फिर भी सरकार ने प्रयास ये किया है कि बजट डेफिसिट में बहुत ज़्यादा परिवर्तन नहीं हो और उसको किसी तरीके से मीट आउट किया जाए। और जैसा कि निर्मला जी ने बताया भी कि वो बजट डेफिसिट की जो बात बता रहे हैं उसमें जो बोरोइंग है, बोरोइंग को नहीं इंक्लूड कर रही हैं। तो हो सकता है आसान बोरोइंग हो और उस आसान बोरोइंग से जो वेलफेयर मेजर्स लिए जाने हैं, और खास करके जो कोरोना पीरियड के 3rd फेज में जो रिकवरी का फेज चल रहा है, जो बार बार यह बात आ रही है कि जो 2
तमाम
फेज
और
के
अपडेट
बाद
के लिए भी फिलहाल हम आपके साथ जुड़ेंगे। हमारे साथ एक और
Mr.
गेस्ट
B.
जुड़ गए हैं।
Tyagarajan, I believe is joining us from CII, Managing Director of Blue Star Limited as well. Mr. Tyagarajan, a very forward-looking budget. That's what the analysts are pointing out, and even the Finance Minister began a speech by saying that this will set the tone for the next 25 years. Now, going into the specifics in terms of what the budget says, not only for the industry but also for various sectors out there, how would you assess various announcements which have been made and the way the Finance Minister has laid out the format for implementation of those policy decisions and the money being spent in various areas?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me as a part of this panel. I think most of the recommendations of CII pre-budget memorandum have been accepted. We are grateful to the Finance Minister for that. And I think, as you rightly mentioned, this provides the continuity. That is what is very important. So there is no deviation from the set path that has been there for the past couple of years. Specifically, last year to this year, there is a continuity. I think we are on a growth path. So we were very particular that this economic GDP growth that is happening now, it should be sustained over next few years. There are a lot of elements there, be it manufacturing or infrastructure, agriculture, services, sustainability, the digitization. So therefore, I think this is a very great budget. And also, most importantly, MSMEs quite a few measures that have been taken, like the credit guarantee scheme extension, the other supports, these are also welcome.
Okay, and in terms of achieving the commitments towards SDGs and climate change as well, quite a lot of announcements and steps out there. Do you believe in terms of their implementation, how will it move forward, and what's the industry's perspective on those steps and decisions which have been taken?
I think in the past couple of years we see very significant improvement in terms of implementation. Take, for example, the PLI scheme. Within 12 months, it was created, and it was placed before the industry. All inputs were taken and gone ahead and implemented. And in fact, the new facilities, for example, in my own industry, will get inaugurated by September, October. So this is one program which I will quote as an example. A very complex one, well executed, and with deep sense of commitment.
Okay.
Same way, if you look at the sustainability related, whether it is Kigali or Montreal Protocol related on energy efficiency, or the low global warming, or the ozone depletion, it is executed well. So I suppose that we should make it happen. We will continue to interact with the government. In fact, we have been asking for wherever there is a glitch, we are knocking the doors of the government. And to me, the implementation commitment is very high on quite a few areas.
Okay. Indeed, the implementation part will have to be taken into consideration there. Shubhmoy, you've been, referring to earlier the social sector aspects in our discussion. Of course, there are, several major points there, but the social sector, when we look at it, when we divide into it, Preeti was earlier discussing with Mr. Sanchit here, which was the health sector. But coming back to the other two parts, that's education, and there's a lot of focus on nutrition as well, Anganwadis, the water. If you look at, there has been a substantial allocation, 60,000 crore rupees for this financial year for the Har Ghar Nal Se Jal scheme.
Absolutely. What we often mistake in the budget over years is that there's always a tendency to announce new schemes. Now that affects delivery. The government over the last few years, this government has actually announced some very major schemes. The Har Ghar Jal is one of those. The scheme for Anna Yojana is another one of those. All of these are very big schemes which are running. Now, any other scheme that comes in and tries to distract from there essentially creates problem. So what the government has done has allowed expansion of the remit of those schemes. That how will they be allowed and ensured? In fact, in this context, it will be very important to look at the outcome budget later on, because outcome budget, which is also presented along with the budget papers, tells to the public that what has been the rupee by rupee use of that money which was spent, which is the right of the people in a democracy. And that data is available in the public. And it's something to encourage everyone to go through that outcome budget to see how well or how well not well has the money been spent, because that gives a lot of understanding of where the money is going. For instance, the finance minister talked about enhanced allocation for the most backward districts. Now that's a very important part of the entire social sector umbrella.
Indeed, and that puts a lot of focus on the social sector there, as you're pointing out. Continuation of schemes there. Mr. Mukul Bagla, meanwhile, is joining us, Chair of Direct Taxes Committee at PhD Chamber. Mr. Bagla, welcome to Sansad Television. Not on the expected lines, not word there on income tax slabs. But when we're talking about direct taxes, if you look at the fine print, a lot has been said and a lot has been done as well. If you could, dwell deeper into what does it mean for the common citizen of the country?
Thank you so much for having me on the panel. I didn't get the last portion of your question very clearly. It was a little noisy here. Please, can you just repeat that?
Yes. Mr. Bagla, The question is that how would you assess what has been said on the direct taxes by the finance minister, and what does it mean for the common citizen of the country? Although there is nothing which has been pointed out or said by the finance minister vis-a-vis the income tax slabs, but there is a lot in the fine print there.
So I think the main emphasis on this year's budget was more on having ease to taxpayer and for dispute resolution, rather than having concrete measures to actually reduce tax rates or anything on that count. But I think the message was very clear that the honest taxpayer will be given his due, and the people who are avoiding taxes will not be left scot-free, as we have seen in the past that people who have been caught during search and surveys, they have been declaring their income and then offsetting that income against their brought forward losses and escaping their tax liabilities. So it is made very clear that if you fail to disclose something, and then you will have to pay taxes. You can't just simply avoid those taxes and adjust against the past losses. But the policy seems to be very clear. Yes, there's a lot of disappointment in respect of some tax rates. We as a chamber were trying to request the Honorable Finance Minister that the tax rates for the smaller businesses which are carried on as LLPs and sole proprietorships, they don't have a level playing field as against the corporates which are having a 22% tax rate. So if you see the background, the corporate tax rate was as high as 35% in 2001, which has come down to 22% or 15% now.
Okay.
Whereas the partnerships and the LLPs and the sole proprietorships are standing at 30% for the last 17 years. And even the individuals, for that matter, the salaried class is again sitting at 30% plus various levels of surcharges for the last so many years. So we are definitely expecting some concession on that account, because of the fact that we've had a buoyant tax collection of more than 60% tax collection increase over the last year, and 40% increase over the year preceding that. So in that environment, we were expecting that could have been given, but a little disappointed on that account. Very happy that we are having some clarity on the taxation of the crypto, which was again one of our proposals, that we need a clarity as a country. We need because the amount of people trading in cryptos is huge, and there was total non-clarity.
That indeed is a huge announcement.
With the corporate tax rate of the tax rate of 30% announced today, that comes at least recognized as an asset class.
तो इस क्षेत्र को लेकर, खासकर टैक्स को लेकर क्या उम्मीदें रही और कहाँ थोड़ी बहुत निराशा हाथ लगी, उसके बारे में आपने बताया। इस समय हम चलेंगे दर्शन हीरानंदानी हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं, हाइड्रोकार्बन काउंसिल एसोचैम एंड सीईओ एच एनर्जी। हीरानंदानी जी, आपका शुक्रिया हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए। अगर हम देखें और खासकर ऊर्जा के क्षेत्र में, एनर्जी के क्षेत्र में जो बढ़ती ज़रूरतें हैं लगातार, ना सिर्फ हमारी बल्कि दुनिया भर की, और जो क्लीन एनर्जी की तरफ आगे जो रास्ता है उसे लंबा सफर एक तय हमें करना भी है। अभी हम देखें तो इस बजट में 19,500 करोड़ रुपए का आवंटन बढ़ाया गया है सौर ऊर्जा उत्पादन के लिए, साथ ही जो इलेक्ट्रिक वाहन है उनके लिए नए चार्जिंग स्टेशन और सौर ऊर्जा के लिए सोलर पैनल आधारित जो बिजली है। तमाम ऐसे कदम हैं जिनका जिक्र इस बार बजट में किया गया है। तो ये आप कितने बड़े कदम मानते हैं जब हम एनर्जी और क्लीन एनर्जी के दिशा में आगे बढ़ने की बात करते हैं? तो
निया जी, ये क्लीन एनर्जी की जो दिशा है, आई थिंक इट्स अ वेरी गुड अप्रोच बाय गवर्नमेंट दोनों चीजें काम कर रही है। हर एरिया में वो क्लीनर जाने की कोशिश कर रही है। तो जहां कोयला है वहां उसको, कोयला और केरोसिन है उसको एलपीजी में कर रही है। जहां एलपीजी आ रही है वहां कह रही है ठीक है, इसको बायो सीएनजी, बायोफ्यूल क्या हम सेल्फ जनरेट कर सकते हैं। जहां वो आ रहा है उसके बाद नेक्स्ट स्टेज में इलेक्ट्रिक और हाइड्रोजन की काम कर रहे हैं, एंड इन सब चीजों को डोमेस्टिक करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। तो सोलर में जैसे हमने देखा, बहुत ही बड़ा प्रोग्राम है फॉर लोकल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑफ ईवीज। अगर आप देखेंगे जो एथेनॉल बेस्ड दिख रहा है,
just stitch them together into
so ये जो प्रोग्राम है, ये एथेनॉल में भी आप देखेंगे ह्यूज अमाउंट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट, और ये आगे बढ़ रहा है। और मैं एक और अलग से पॉइंट ऑब्जर्वेशन कहना चाहूंगा कि इस बजट में दोनों एंड्स उन्होंने कर लिया है। एक जगह जहां सब जैसे बहुत ही सिंपल चीज फार्मिंग जैसे है, उसको केमिकल फ्री फार्मिंग का एक अप्रोच पायलट आगे बढ़ाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, और हर एरिया में डिजिटाइजेशन से कितना मैक्सिमम बेनिफिट कर सकते हैं और
Okay.
डिजिटल लेके उसको कितनी मैक्सिमम बेनिफिट्स ला सकते हैं, एवरी एरिया में उन्होंने कुछ ना कुछ कदम आगे लिए हैं.
Okay,
And,
indeed,
मुझे
Mr.
लगता है
Hiranandani,
कि-
quite a lot of steps there when we're talking about clean energy, a lot of measures being announced to achieve the targets there and ensure that we fulfill our commitments to the SDGs and the climate change as well. We'll take a short break here, but our discussion and analysis of the union budget will continue on Sansad Television. Stay tuned.